Hello, everyone, and welcome to the case presentation on the Mountain Man Brewing Company bringing the brand to life. We are Group A, made up of Savannah Albright, Kevin Bader, Jeff Christie, Michelle Horner, and I'm Alex Topakbashian. I want to start by giving you a brief overview of our presentation. I'll begin with the situation analysis, highlighting key aspects of the case that are relevant to the recommendation that we're making. I'll then share the recommendation overview and the general direction that we think Chris needs to take in order to be successful. Savannah will take a deep dive into the proposed recommendation and provide our rationale. She'll also look at critical success factors, things that must be in place in order for the recommendation to work. Finally, Michelle will share the marketing strategy and other things for Chris to consider in order to move forward successfully. So let's look at where the case left off. Chris is clearly in a position where he has to decide between focusing on the core brand or launching Mountain Man Light. And we all know he's going to be leading the business in 5 years, and his father will be retiring. So when he looks at the focusing on the core brand as an option, he sees the decline in sales and the single product strategy, not something to be too excited about. His father, however, sees loyalty to the core market and keeping the legacy alive. In launching Mountain Man Light, Chris sees an opportunity to reach the younger segment and grow. Whereas the leadership team sees this as others have tried and failed and will only erode the brand. So we have two opposing views. Neither one alone is going to make the difference because if they focus on the core brand, Chris is not going to be thrilled about leading the marketing efforts from that perspective. If they launch Mountain Man Light without the buy-in of the senior leadership, they're not going to have the necessary leadership to have it be successful. So from our perspective, neither one alone is going to make the difference. So we have to look somewhere else for the answer. Let's take a look at a SWOT analysis for a moment. Not so much from the perspective of the things that are obvious in the case, but from the perspective of things that might be in the background and not so obvious. For example, a clear strength is brand equity. But what we want to focus on is their ability to create brand equity. Given that they were so successful in creating brand equity in one product, who's to say that they can't replicate that in other products? A weakness is their single product strategy. But what about a mindset that could be limiting growth? For example, Oscar said that value is achieved only by focusing on what you do best. But what if what you do best is no longer what people want? And how can they be so sure that they're never going to capture the same loyalty among young drinkers as they have with the blue collar workers? Perhaps they haven't because they haven't considered that they could. So that's clearly an opportunity, reaching the younger segment. But what about an opportunity in creating brands that complement each other and strengthen each other rather than cannibalize each other? A threat will always be the further expansion of competitors into the market. But given the industry trends and aging demographic, a status quo approach is only going to erode the brand anyway, so that can't be a viable option. So our approach is pretty simple. One, grow and increase the profitability of the core brand without ignoring it. And two, introduce a light brand that's a complement or like a sister to the existing brand. Before any plan can be created, however, Chris is going to have to first exercise his leadership and align on the focus and direction of the strategy with the larger leadership team and ensure that the leadership is 100% on board with the strategy. So we're seeing this as an essential prerequisite to creating any plan, that they first are aligned on the future direction of the business, and then two, from there, create a plan that's consistent with that. Now I'll hand it over to Savannah, who will walk us through the rationale for why we think this is the right approach.
Thank you, Alex. So the next couple slides should really solidify why this approach is necessary to ensure the longevity of Mountain Man Brewing Company. First, we're just taking a look at the market data here. So this is beer consumption by type for the East Central region, which is Mountain Man Brewing Company's primary region. The assumptions are that the premium beer consumption decreases at a rate of 4% each year, whereas the light beer consumption increases at a rate of 4% each year. So you can see it's estimated to be 64% of consumers are drinking light beer in 2011. And for Mountain Man Brewing Company, since they're not currently offering a product in this segment, that really hurts them in terms of consumption and what that could potentially mean for their business. Taking it a step further, we can look at demographics then. and see some additional areas to help penetrate and support the rationale for introducing a light product. So for female beer drinkers, currently 19% of female beer drinkers are drinking Mountain Man Lager in comparison to 42% of female beer drinkers who are choosing a light beer option. So again, just another way to show that really a light beer option is kind of critical to the ongoing success of Mountain Man Brewing Company. And then in addition, just looking at age bands. So, particularly anyone under the age of 45, really not being touched upon with the lager product. They're typically going for like the light product or a premium product. So that's why offering something outside of just the standard Mountain Man Lager is kind of critical in order to really encompass this demographic and really touch on anyone under the age of 45. So next we just take a look at the forecast. There are some assumptions. The first one being that Mountain Man Light sales would increase at a rate of 4% each year. Another is that Mountain Man Light market share would start out at 0.25% in year one and then increase by 0.25% each year thereafter. There's a assumption for revenue to decrease at a rate of 7%, 2% due to the market decrease, and then 5% due to just cannibalization. $900,000 is added to SG&A each year just because of the light product, and then $750,000 year one just for advertising expenses associated with the light product. So you can see here the revenue as well as the net income comparison. If Mountain Man Brewing Company would just stick with the lager product, you're looking at a decline in both year over year. Whereas implementing that light product, you're looking at an increase year over year each year. I think it's really interesting the net income year 5, what's estimated. It's estimated that if they stick with the lager product, they would essentially be missing out on double the net income by not having that light option. So, how can a company not explore the opportunity to double their net income? So just some key factors to enable the success of all of this. Having Oscar and the senior leaders buy in. In addition, kind of taking that a step further, making sure that they're committed to the strategy and kind of adhering to it and helping to implement it. A willingness to do whatever it takes to build a new brand. So if that means cannibalization from lager customers to light customers, then you just accept it because at the end of the day, they're still a customer. And lastly, looking to grow outside of the East Central region. So really expanding the breadth of where Mountain Man Brewing Company is reaching. So now I will turn it over to Michelle, who will touch on the marketing strategy.
In creating a sister brand for Mountain Man Brewing Company, we recommend creating a beer that complements the established Mountain Man brand that people love and trust. We recommend providing a light alternative that has the same flavor Mountain Man Brewing Company patrons love. What we think this is Mountain Jack. It'll appeal to a younger market who wants to drink the same beer that their fathers drank, but with a light option. To launch the Mountain Jack brand, we want to host the first ever Mountain Man Brewing Company Mountain Jack and Mountain Jill competition. This will be a field day of Mountain Men activities hosted at headquarters right in West Virginia. And at the end of the event, all participants will receive a free sample of Mountain Jack. We'll also have limited edition Mountain Jill bottles for our female competitors and spectators. And the great part of this is the event can be taken on the road to some of our larger markets and create more brand awareness for Mountain Jack. We know that Mountain Man Brewing Company has a strong brand, but given the recent decline in sales, we see an opportunity to introduce a new product to the market. We want to get management on board before we develop any plan. So we've created this proposal to identify the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that all come with launching Mountain Jack, a light lager. Now that you've seen our proposal, we want to know your thoughts. Let us know, do you agree that launching Mountain Jack will help capitalize on the changing demographic of beer drinkers? And do you see Mountain Jack as a complement to the Mountain Man Lager that people have loved and trusted for years? Thank you.